Summer is right around the corner, which means it's time to pick out a great book. And I am going to recommend 10 books. But first, I'm going to start with a shout out to my own book, which is called Four Seasons at Angelino's by Caroline McBride. That's me. And this is a romantic comedy that takes place around the world when a restaurant publicist gives herself a year to find the one. And you'll go to exotic places like Japan and Moscow, London, LA, New York, stateside, Aspen. It's a lot of fun. It's a quick read. Next up is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a bestseller from the New York Times. Everybody's talking about it. It's about two kids from LA, one from Beverly Hills, one from Koreatown, and they meet in a children's hospital. They're from opposite worlds, but they're united by gaming, and they reconnect later in life in Boston. It is a great read. I just finished it last week. Cradles of the Reich by Jennifer Coburn. This is a novel, but it's based on the Nazi breeding program during the World War II, which was absolutely horrific. And when you read this book, you feel like, who needs fiction when reality is so startling? It's a great book, and like I said, very well written. On a much lighter note is Meet You in the Middle by Devon. This is a romantic comedy. It's about two staffers in Washington, D.C., and they're from opposite sides of the aisle. And it's uplifting in the sense that it makes you think of the time when people were not so hysterical about politics, and you could be friends with people who had different political views. So yeah, there's a little something going on between these two. Speaking of politics, American Spy by Wilkenson is a riveting tale of an FBI agent who's a Black woman in the 1980s during the communism period, and she gets sent to spy. It takes place in Africa and in the US and a few other places, so you should check that one out. A Place for Us by Fatima, Farheen, Mirza is a beautiful tale. It's really tugs at your heartstrings. It's about an Indian Muslim immigrant family who comes to the US, and the son is having some issues. It's kind of like the old traditions meet the West. Love marriage versus arranged marriages. If you watch The Indian Matchmaker, you know what I'm talking about. But it's sort of how they assimilate and succeed or don't succeed, and the conflict that goes on within the culture, American culture, and their culture. But then also they are now American culture, right? So it's the conflict from within the family. Next up is a business book. And it was written by my friend Mindie Barnett, who's a publicist in New York. And it's called You Don't Have to Be a Bitch to Be a Boss. And it's basically giving advice and tips to female leaders on how to lead your staff and your employees. And I can say that I wish a few of my female bosses from the past would read this, because they could use it. But everyone can learn from it. The Unhoneymooners is by Christina, and they have a lot of rom-com books out. And when I say they, it's not a gender judgment. It's because it really is they. There's two people. Christina and Lauren is two people, two female writers. And this book is about two people who basically hate each other and end up in paradise together. So my all-time favorite entertainer in the world is Bono. He's so amazing. He's so talented. And he now has a memoir out. It's called Surrender. 40 songs, one story. And if you don't already know, his mother died when he was very young, and it had a huge impact on him. And it really shaped his life, but so did forming the band U2 with his schoolmates. He now has a show in New York, or he had it, it's already done, at the Beacon Theater. It was amazing, where he performed some songs from the book and then also told the story. of his life through this memoir, and I believe it's going to be a Netflix special, so look out for that. If you don't read the book, you can catch the story on Netflix, hopefully. The Plaza by Julie Satow is an historical account of the iconic Plaza Hotel in New York City on Fifth Avenue. If you haven't had the chance to go there, if you've never been there, you might know it from Eloise, the famous childhood story. She used to run around the plaza, and it's a historic account of the different owners, the different people who used to live there and reside there. There's even pictures, and it's really wild what used to go on there. I guess what still goes on there too. So it's written from the founding up to the current day. Last but definitely not least is The Stranger in the Lifeboat by Mitch Albom. Mitch Albom is one of my all-time favorite writers. He writes inspirational fiction. And if you don't know what that is, it means that there's a bit of spirituality mixed in. And so there's references to God, often the afterlife, people we've lost, communicating to us. So it's a real tearjerker. This is about 5 people who are stuck on a boat together, and they're shipwrecked. So it's like, what happens? How do they interact? Who survives? Who doesn't? Who finds salvation? The Boston Globe says Albom has the ability to make you cry in spite of yourself, and that is definitely true. This is a tearjerker, but it's a great book. I hope that I've inspired you to read something good this summer, and I hope you have fun.